The exploration vessel GC Luminescence moved through the blackness of space. It was a ship of the Galactic Concordance, an alliance of many different alien species who lived in peace. The ship was smooth and white, shaped like a gentle curve. It was not built for war, but for discovery. Its purpose was to find new worlds and to understand the universe. Inside the ship, the air was quiet and calm. The lights were soft. The crew, a mix of beings from different worlds, worked at their stations without speaking much. There was an avian species called the Tsil, who had delicate feathered arms and large, dark eyes. There were also the Kthar, a reptilian people with slow, deliberate movements and scaled skin. They were all professional and calm. They were a team. The commander of the ship was Captain Jinsuk. He was a human male, chosen for this mission because of his experience and his calm nature. His family had served the Concordance for generations. He believed deeply in its mission of peace and knowledge. He stood on the raised platform in the middle of the bridge, looking at the main view screen. The stars were like tiny, sharp points of light against the endless dark. "Status report," Jinsuk said. His voice was even and quiet. A Tsil officer at a nearby console turned her head. Her name was Sumin. Her feathers, shades of soft gray and white, ruffled slightly. "We are approaching the edge of the TK-741 system, Captain. All systems are functioning within normal parameters. The long-range scans are beginning to come in now. Put the primary data on the main screen," Jinsuk ordered. The starfield on the view screen was replaced by streams of numbers and shifting graphs. A planet appeared in the center of the display. From here, it looked beautiful. It was a world of bright blue oceans and swirling white clouds. Large land masses were covered in deep, vibrant green. It looked like a paradise. But the data told a very different story. Sumin's voice was tense. "Initial scans confirm the preliminary classification, Captain. TK-741 is a Class 3 Deathworld." A quiet murmur went through the bridge crew. A Class 3 was the highest, most severe classification the Concordance had. It was a label reserved for worlds where everything was designed to kill. Only a handful of such worlds had ever been confirmed. Most were barren rocks of poison and radiation. This one was alive. That made it even more dangerous. "Break it down for me, Sumin," Jinsuk said, his eyes fixed on the beautiful, deadly image. "The atmosphere," Sumin began, reading the data, "is a toxic mix. Oxygen levels are dangerously high for most concordant species. It would cause rapid oxidation damage. Essentially, it would make our cells rust. There are also trace elements of neurotoxins and corrosive compounds. A single breath would be fatal for any of us without full environmental protection." Jinsuk nodded slowly. "Go on. The geology is hyperactive. The tectonic plates are in constant, violent movement. The planet's surface experiences over 10,000 significant seismic events per rotation. Its magnetic field is also wildly unstable, offering poor protection from solar radiation. And the biology." Sumin paused, her large eyes widening as she read the new information. "The life forms are extraordinarily aggressive. The scan is picking up chemical signatures for over 200 different complex venoms. The flora shows signs of carnivorous and mobile behavior. The predator-to-prey ratio is inverted. It seems everything on that world is both a hunter and a target." Minsu, a Kthar security officer, spoke from his station. His low, rumbling voice filled the room. "It is a world of endless battle, a meat grinder. Nothing could survive on the surface for long." "That is the prevailing theory," Jinsuk agreed. "Our mission is to confirm the classification and gather data from orbit. We are not to make contact. We are not to send down probes unless it is absolutely safe. We observe, we record, and we leave." He looked around the bridge. "This is a reminder that the universe is not always a friendly place. We are here as scientists. We will be careful." The luminescence moved closer, taking up a high orbit around the green and blue world. The crew went to work, their instruments gathering every piece of information they could. They watched storms larger than continents form and break apart in hours. They saw lightning flashes that could power a city for a year. They detected the constant, low rumble of earthquakes reshaping the land. Sumin was focused on her sensor display. The data was chaotic, full of interference from the planet's violent magnetic field and intense weather. She was filtering out the noise, looking for anything unusual. Her job was to find the quiet signals in the storm. And then, she saw it was a tiny blip, a consistency in the chaos. A signal that was too regular, too structured to be natural. It was coming from the planet's north pole, an area shrouded in a permanent, violent electromagnetic storm. "Captain," she said, her voice sharp with surprise, "I am detecting an anomaly." Jin-Suk walked over to her station, looking over her shoulder at the screen. "What kind of anomaly?" "It is a low-level energy signature, very shielded, but it is repeating in a precise pattern. It is artificial." She looked up at him, her dark eyes wide. "There is a power source down there, a large one, and it is surrounded by alloys, manufactured materials." A wave of disbelief passed through the bridge. On a Class 3 Deathworld, the idea of a structure was insane. What kind of civilization could build in the middle of such hell? And why? Could it be a natural formation? Jin-Suk asked, his scientific mind trying to find a logical explanation. A crystalline deposit, perhaps? Something that resonates. Sumin shook her head, her feathers twitching. "No, Captain. The molecular structure is uniform. It is a manufactured metal composite. And the power signature is consistent with a contained fusion reactor. It is technology." Minsu stood up, his large reptilian body tense. "A survivor? Another exploration team that was lost here? The Concordance has no records of any missions to this sector," Jin-Suk said, his brow furrowed in thought. "And no known species could survive on the surface long enough to build anything. The environment would destroy any structure in a matter of days. Unless they are still there," Sumin said quietly. "Maintaining it." The idea hung in the air. It was both thrilling and terrifying. First contact was the dream of every explorer in the Concordance. But a first contact on a death world? It was a nightmare scenario. "Can you get a visual?" Jin-Suk asked. "Through the storm. I can try to enhance the signal and use a penetrating scan," Sumin said. "But the interference is extreme. It will take time, and it might alert whatever is down there to our presence." Jin-Suk considered the options. His orders were clear: observe and leave. But the prime directive of the Concordance was to seek knowledge. To turn away from a discovery like this felt wrong. Felt like a failure of their purpose. He made his decision. "Do it," he said. "But be cautious. Use passive scans only. I do not want to announce our presence with an active probe. Let's see what is hiding at the pole." Sumin nodded, and her hands flew across the console. The bridge was silent, the only sound the gentle hum of the ship's systems. On the main view screen, the image of the planet shifted. It zoomed in on the North Pole, a place of howling winds, black rock, and constant lightning. The image was fuzzy, broken by static. Slowly, as Sumin's skilled hands worked, the image began to clear. The static lessened. The shapes on the ground became sharper. They saw a massive mountain range, its peaks jagged like broken teeth. In the center of the range was a vast caldera, a bowl-shaped depression from which plumes of superheated steam and ash erupted. And there, nestled right in the heart of that volcanic fury, was something that should not have been. It was a ship, but it was like no ship any of them had ever seen. It was not smooth or graceful. It was angular and brutal, forged from a dark, non-reflective metal that seemed to absorb the light. It had no visible windows or elegant curves. It was a block, a fortress, covered in scars and pits as if it had been sandblasted by 1,000 storms. It was huge, larger than the luminescence, and it sat there, immovable, in the middle of the erupting volcano. The crew of the luminescence stared, utterly silent. They were looking at an impossibility. A ship on the surface of a death world. A ship that was not just surviving, but was parked in the most violently active spot on the entire planet. Before anyone could speak, Before Jin-suk could give an order, a new signal appeared on Sumin's panel. It was a powerful, focused transmission, coming directly from the dark ship below. It was a single, repeating data packet. It was not a complex message. It was not a greeting. It was a single word, in an old, rarely used dialect of Galactic Standard. The word was identify. The single word hung in the air of the bridge. Identify. It was not a request. It was a command. A cold, digital demand that cut through the quiet hum of the luminescence. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. They were all frozen, staring at the main view screen. On it, the dark, scarred ship sat in the heart of the volcano, unmoving. The signal was a direct laser link, piercing the planet's violent magnetic storms with ease. It was a display of power and technological mastery that the Concordance could barely comprehend. Captain Jin-suk was the first to break the silence. His training took over. "Minsu, condition of our shields?" he asked, his voice tighter than before. The Kthar security officer was already analyzing the data. "Our shields are at full strength, Captain. But that transmission, it bypassed them completely. It was like they weren't even there. They have targeting lock on us. Perfect lock." A soft chitter of fear came from one of the Tsil crew members. Sumin, at the sensor station, looked up from her console, her feathers lying flat against her body in a sign of deep alarm. "The signal origin is not just the planet, Captain. It is that specific vessel. The power signature has increased by 500%. It is awake, and it is looking directly at us." Jin-suk felt a cold knot form in his stomach. This was a first contact scenario, but it was all wrong. It was happening at gunpoint over a world of fire and poison. He had to be careful. One wrong move could mean the end of his ship and his crew. "Open a standard communication channel," Jin-suk ordered. "Broadcast our official Concordance identification codes and the standard first contact package. Languages, mathematics, peaceful greetings. Make it clear we are explorers, not invaders." The communication officer, a young Kthar named Taemin, worked quickly. "Broadcasting the package now, Captain." They waited. The only sound was the repeating, pulsing signal from the planet. Identify, identify, identify. It was a relentless, digital heartbeat. Then, it stopped. The sudden silence was more frightening than the signal had been. The bridge crew held their breath. On the view screen, the dark ship remained motionless in the caldera. Then, a new signal came through. It was a different frequency, cleaner and sharper. It was a live channel. "Visual signal incoming," Taemin announced, his voice a nervous rumble. Putting it on the main screen, the image of the planet vanished, replaced by the interior of a ship. The lighting was harsh and functional. The walls were made of the same dark, scarred metal as the hull. And in the center of the screen was a face. It was a human. Jin-suk felt a jolt of disbelief. The entire bridge crew stared, stunned. Humans were a myth, a ghost story in the archives of the Concordance. Records said they had achieved spaceflight long ago, but they were a violent, unstable species. They had fought amongst themselves with terrible weapons. They had never joined the Concordance. Most historians believed they had died out in a final, great war centuries ago. They were a lesson in what not to become. But this man was very much alive. He looked to be in his middle years. His hair was black and cut short. His eyes were dark and held a calm intensity that was unsettling. He had the look of someone who had seen hard things and had not been broken by them. He wore a simple, dark uniform with no decorations. "I am Commander Daehyun of the Terran Vigil," the man said. His voice was calm and deep, without any hint of warmth. He spoke a slightly archaic form of Galactic Standard, but it was perfectly understandable. "You are in restricted space. State your purpose." Jin-suk straightened his uniform. He needed to project calm and authority. "I am Captain Jin-suk of the Galactic Concordance vessel GC Luminescence. We are on a mission of exploration and scientific survey. We meant no intrusion. We were unaware this system was claimed." Daehyun's eyes seemed to analyze every detail of Jin-suk's face. This system is not claimed. It is home. Your scans have violated our perimeter. You have looked upon our world. Our intentions are peaceful, Jin-Suk said carefully. The Galactic Concordance is an alliance of species dedicated to knowledge and cooperation. We seek only to understand. Understanding is a luxury, Daehyun replied, his tone flat. One this world does not afford. You are floating in a shooting gallery. Your ship is not built for this environment. As if to prove his point, a warning alarm sounded on the Luminescence's bridge. Sumin looked down at her panel. Captain, a micrometeorite swarm. It was hidden in the planet's radiation shadow. It is on a collision course. Evasive action, Jin-Suk ordered. The Luminescence was a ship of science. It was not built for quick, violent maneuvers. Tilted and began to move, but it was slow and heavy. The crew held onto their stations as the inertial dampeners struggled to compensate. On the view screen, Daehyun watched, his expression unchanged. The micrometeorites, tiny rocks moving at incredible speed, began to pepper the Luminescence's shields. The ship shuddered with each impact. The shield indicators on the main display flickered downward. They are overloading the forward shields, Min-Soo reported. A direct impact on the hull is imminent. Jin-Suk was about to give another order when Daehyun spoke again. His voice was still calm. Hold your position. Hold our position. Jin-Suk repeated, incredulous. We are under fire. Hold. Daehyun repeated. With absolute finality, Jin-Suk looked at the faces of his crew. They were afraid. He had a choice. Trust this human from a nightmare world, or trust his own instincts and try to run. Something in Daehyun's calmness, in the sheer impossibility of his ship surviving on the planet below, made the decision for him. All stop, Jin-Suk said, his voice quiet. Maintain position. The crew looked at him with shock, but they obeyed. The ship stopped its evasive maneuvers. It hung in space, a perfect target. The meteor swarm closed in. The crew braced for the final, destructive impacts. But the impacts never came. A moment before the swarm would have torn the Luminescence apart. A brilliant, silent beam of blue energy lanced out from the planet's surface. Came from the dark ship. It moved through the swarm, and where it touched, the meteorites simply vaporized into clouds of harmless dust. In less than 3 seconds, the entire threat was gone. The space around the Luminescence was clear. The bridge was utterly silent. The weapon had been terrifyingly fast and accurate. It had not been a blast or an explosion. It was a precise, surgical removal of a threat. The Concordance had no weapon technology that could even come close. On the screen, Daehyun finally showed a hint of expression. It was not a smile. It was a slight, hard tightening at the corners of his mouth. Your ship is fragile. This is a fragile place. You will now follow my instructions exactly. You will receive a landing vector. You will bring your ship into the upper atmosphere and follow the guidance beam to a designated landing bay in my vessel. Jin-Suk felt a cold dread. To take his ship into the atmosphere of a Deathworld. To land inside an alien warship? It was every safety protocol broken at once. That is a significant risk to my vessel and crew, Jin-Suk said, trying to keep his voice steady. The significant risk was staying in orbit, Daehyun said. The next solar flare in this cycle will be 20 times stronger. Your shields would last for 6 seconds. The choice is simple. Dock with us or be destroyed by the sun. You have 5 minutes to decide. The screen went dark, returning to the view of the planet. A new data packet arrived, containing the landing coordinates and a complex guidance frequency. The crew looked to their captain. Their faces were pale. Min-Soo was the first to speak. Captain, it is a trap. They will capture the ship. They will kill us all. Sumin looked at her sensors. He is not lying about the solar activity, Captain. The energy buildup on the star is catastrophic. He is giving us a way out. Jin-Suk looked at the beautiful, terrible world below. He looked at the dark ship waiting in the volcano. They had come as explorers, masters of their own fate. Now they were being offered a choice between 2 kinds of death: incineration by a star or the unknown mercy of a ghost. He took a deep breath. "All hands, prepare for atmospheric entry," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "Set course for the provided coordinates. And everyone, pray that we have just found a protector and not a predator." The GC luminescence shook violently as it entered the upper atmosphere of the Deathworld. The ride was nothing like the smooth, controlled entries they were used to on civilized planets. Here, the air itself seemed to fight them. Turbulence rattled the ship's frame. Alarms blared as wind shear tested the strength of the wings. On the bridge, the crew held on tightly to their stations. The view screen showed a nightmare landscape rushing up to meet them. Jagged black mountains, rivers of molten rock, and jungles of a terrifying violent green. "Shields are failing," Minsu shouted over the noise. "The atmospheric corrosion is eating through the energy matrix faster than we can recharge it. Just keep us together," Jin-suk said, his knuckles white as he gripped his chair. "Follow that guidance beam." A piercing blue line of energy cut through the chaotic sky ahead of them. It was the path laid out by the human ship. It weaved dangerously between mountain peaks and through a canyon of howling winds. It was a flight path no sane pilot would ever take. "He is leading us through the most unstable air on the planet," the pilot, a Tsil named Ji-hun, said, his feathers puffed out in fear. "One mistake and we are smashed against the rocks." "We have no choice," Jin-suk replied. "Trust the beam." They followed the line of light. It felt like falling down a long, dark tunnel with only a single thread to guide them. The ship was tossed and battered. Then, the beam led them straight towards the massive volcanic caldera. The heat readings went off the scale. "He is taking us into the volcano," Sumin cried out. "Maintain course," Jin-suk ordered, his heart pounding. Just as it seemed they would fly into a wall of lava, a section of the mountain ahead of them slid open. It was a huge door, made of the same dark metal as the human ship. It revealed a brightly lit landing bay inside the mountain itself. The guidance beam led them directly inside. The moment the luminescence crossed the threshold, the shaking stopped. The sound of the storm vanished. The ship settled onto the deck with a gentle thud. The door behind them closed, sealing them in. They were inside the human vessel. The landing bay was enormous and stark. The air was thick and heavy. The gravity was stronger than standard, making every movement feel slow and difficult. The light was a harsh, bright white, leaving no shadows to hide in. Outside the viewport, they could see human crew members moving around. They wore simple, practical uniforms. They did not stop to look at the new ship. They just went about their work with a quiet, focused efficiency. It was unsettling. "Atmospheric analysis," Jin-suk said, his voice sounding strange in the sudden quiet. Sumin checked her panel. "The air is breathable for us, Captain, but just barely. The oxygen is very high. There are also complex biological markers, pollens, microbes. It is the air of this world. They are breathing the air of a death world." A chill went through the bridge. These humans did not just live on this planet. They lived in it. They breathed its poison air like it was nothing. A communication came through. It was Dae-hyun's voice. "Captain Jin-suk, you and 2 members of your crew will come to the observation deck. You will not bring weapons. My people will escort you." Jin-suk stood up.
Min-so, So-min.
"You are with me." He looked at the worried faces of his crew. "No one does anything. No scans, no transmissions. We are guests here. We will act like it." The 3 of them left the bridge and walked to the ship's main airlock. When the door opened, 2 human soldiers were waiting for them. They were tall and stood very still. Their eyes watched every move. They did not speak. One of them simply gestured for the 3 visitors to follow. They walked through the corridors of the human ship, which was called the Unyielding Guard. The inside was just as brutal as the outside. There were no decorations, no colors. Everything was gray metal and function. The doors were thick like vault doors. The humans they passed looked at them with calm, curious eyes, but no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of powerful machinery and the heavy tread of their own feet. They entered a large room with one entire wall made of a transparent material. It was the observation deck. The view outside was not of stars, but of the planet's surface. They were looking out from the side of the mountain. They saw a river of lava flowing slowly past, close enough to feel its heat. Ash fell from the sky like black snow. In the distance, a lightning storm lit up the dark jungle. Commander Daehyun stood before the window, his back to them, watching the Hell's Cape. He turned as they entered. "Welcome to Earth," he said. Jin-suk, Soo-min, and Min-soo just stared. This was Earth? The human homeworld? It was a universal nightmare. You call this home?" Soo-min asked, her voice a whisper of disbelief. Daehyun almost smiled. It was a small, hard thing. "We do not just call it home. It made us. It is our mother and our teacher. Every day it tries to kill us. Every day we survive, we become stronger." He walked closer to the window. "You see a river of fire. We see a source of geothermal power. You see poisonous air. We have lungs that filter the toxins. You see predators in the jungle. We see a training ground that taught us how to fight, how to endure, how to think." He turned to look at them. "Your concordance worlds are soft. Your people grew up without struggle. You built a gentle civilization. We grew up in a cage with a monster. We had to become strong enough to strangle it every single day just to see the sunrise." Min-soo, the security officer, found his voice. "So you became monsters yourselves? You built this fortress? To hide from the galaxy?" Daehyun's eyes locked onto Min-soo. "We did not hide. We watched. We saw your concordance spread. We saw you believe the universe was safe. You built ships of peace to explore a garden. We knew the garden was an illusion. The universe is a jungle, just like this one. We built this fortress not to hide, but to guard." "Guard what?" Jin-suk asked. "The door," Daehyun said simply. He pointed a finger out the window, towards the stars. "You are so busy looking at the flowers, you never see the wolves circling your campfire. But we see them. We have always seen them. And we are the wall between them and you." The three visitors from the luminescence were silent. The idea was too big to understand. This Deathworld was not a prison for humanity. It was a shield. And these humans were not its prisoners. They were its guardians. They had not found a lost tribe. They had found the galaxy's most terrifying secret. And they had no idea what to do with it. The weight of Daehyun's words filled the room. The view outside the window was a constant, violent reminder of their truth. This was not a ship. It was a fortress built by survivors of an endless war against their own planet. Jin-suk struggled to find his voice. "The wolves you speak of, what are they?" Daehyun's gaze was steady. "That is not a conversation for today. Today you need to understand us. You need to understand why we are here and why we remain." He gestured for them to follow him to another part of the observation deck. A large, dark table sat there, its surface smooth like glass. "Your people have a history, so do we, but our history is written in blood and lightning." He placed his hand on the table. The surface lit up, showing a star chart. It was familiar. It was the local spiral arm of the galaxy. But then, Daehyun made a small gesture. The view changed. It showed the same region of space, but now it was overlaid with hundreds of faint, red lines and markers. They clustered along the outer edges of Concordance territory, like a silent, invisible fence. "These," Daehyun said, pointing to the red markers, "are incursions, scouting parties, predatory species that hunt for soft targets. Worlds like yours." Soo-min, the scientist, leaned forward, her eyes wide. "There is no record of this in the Concordance databases. None of these systems show any signs of intelligent life. Because they are careful," Daehyun said. "They do not broadcast their presence. They observe. They probe for weakness. And when they find it, they strike. They have struck before." He changed the display again. It showed a world, green and beautiful. Then, the image changed. The world was gray and dead, its atmosphere gone. This was Lorvin, a Concordance agricultural colony. Your records say it was lost to a planetary core collapse. There is no such thing. It was stripped clean. A harvest. Minsu, the soldier, growled softly. That is a lie. The investigation was conclusive. Your investigation saw what it was allowed to see. Daehyun replied, his voice cold. We saw the truth. We were too far away to stop it. We only arrived in time to chase off the scavenger ships that followed. We have made sure we are not too far away since. He looked at each of them. You call this a death world. You are right, but it is our advantage. Any ship that wants to reach the soft, green worlds of the Concordance must pass through this sector. They must pass by us. And they must face this. He gestured to the hell outside the window. They must face a species that was forged in fire. A species for whom war is not a profession, but a childhood lesson. Jin-suk finally spoke, his mind reeling. So you have appointed yourselves our guardians? Without our knowledge. Without our consent. Consent. Daehyun asked, a real smile finally touching his lips, but it was a sad one. Would you have consented? If we had appeared at your capital a century ago and said, your civilization is naive and weak, and we will protect you from the monsters in the dark, what would you have said? You would have called us barbarians. You would have tried to talk to the monsters. And you would have been eaten. He was right. Jin-suk knew it. The Concordance would have debated the issue for years. They would have sent envoys to these predatory species. They would have tried to understand them. They would have been destroyed. So you hide here, Sumin said softly. You sacrifice everything. Your place in the galaxy. A life of peace. You live in this hell? For us? We do not see it as a sacrifice, Daehyun said. We see it as a duty. It is the purpose we were made for. This hell is our home. It made us strong enough to do this job. We do not want your thanks. We do not want your friendship. We only want you to remain unaware. A peaceful, thriving concordance is a signal to the galaxy that life is possible without constant war. It is a beacon, and beacons need to be protected from the things that hunt in the dark. He turned off the table. The images vanished. You asked what we guard. We guard your innocence. It is a fragile thing, and it is worth guarding. At that moment, a low, deep alarm began to sound throughout the ship. It was not a shrill warning, but a resonant, powerful hum that vibrated in their bones. Daehyun's head tilted slightly, as if listening to a voice in his ear. The lesson is over, he said, his calm demeanor shifting into something sharper, more focused. A solar event is beginning. It is more powerful than we predicted. Your ship is not safe where it is docked. The energy surge will fry its systems, even inside our bay. He looked at Jin-suk. You must move it. Now. Move it where? Jin-suk asked, panic rising. There is no safe harbor on this planet. There is one place, Daehyun said. The lee side of the planet. It will block the worst of the radiation. But you must go now. The window is closing. He led them quickly back to the corridor. My people will take you back to your ship. You have 10 minutes to get clear of the mountain and make the jump to the other side of the planet. The coordinates are being sent to you now. The human escorts were waiting, their posture now urgent. They hurried Jin-suk, Sumin, and Minsu back through the stark corridors. The human crew they passed were now moving with a controlled speed, a well-practiced dance of crisis as they reached the airlock of the luminescence. Daehyun gave Jin-suk one last look. Your ship is slow. Your crew is not used to pressure. This is no longer a theory. This is the reality we live in. Prove that you can survive it. The airlock door closed behind them, sealing them inside their own ship. The three of them stood for a second, breathing heavily in the familiar, clean air. Then, Jin-suk ran for the bridge, shouting into his communicator. All hands, battle stations, prepare for emergency launch. We have to outrun the sun. Chaos erupted on the bridge of the luminescence. Jin-suk burst onto the deck, his heart hammering against his ribs. Yi-hun, get us off this deck. Now, Sumin, plot the course Daehyun sent us. The side of the planet facing away from the star. The crew scrambled. Alarms were silenced only to be replaced by new, more urgent ones. The ship shuddered as its engines whined to life, lifting them off the metal deck of the human hangar bay. The main bay door is opening, Ji-hun reported, his hands flying over the controls. The massive door slid aside, revealing the same violent sky they had flown through before. But now the light was different. It had a sickly, intense quality. The air itself seemed to be buzzing with invisible energy. Radiation levels are spiking exponentially, Sumin yelled. The solar flare has begun. Our shields are already at 60% and falling. Just get us through that door, Jin-suk ordered. The luminescence shot forward, lurching out of the mountain fortress and back into the hellish atmosphere. The moment they cleared the door, the ship was hit by a wave of energy so powerful it felt like a physical blow. The lights flickered, consoles spat sparks. The entire vessel groaned in protest. Shields at 40%, Minsu roared. Hull temperature is rising fast. Full power to engines. Get us out of the atmosphere. Jin-suk clung to his chair as the ship bucked and rolled. On the view screen, the sky was turning a brilliant, terrifying white. The sun was having an eruption, and they were flying right through the edge of it. Ji-hun pushed the engines far beyond their safety limits. The ship climbed, fighting the heavy gravity and the boiling air. They broke through the upper atmosphere, but the view that greeted them was worse. Space was not black. It was a storm of light and energy. Waves of plasma from the sun washed over the ship. Shields failing. Sumin's voice was sharp with panic. 20%. The radiation is breaching the outer hull. Non-critical systems are failing all over the ship. A massive tremor shook the luminescence. A console on the far side of the bridge exploded in a shower of sparks, injuring a TSIL officer. The main lights went out, replaced by dim red emergency lighting. The ship was dying around them. We are not going to make it, Ji-hun shouted, despair in his voice. The engines can't take this stress. We are losing power. Jin-suk looked at the main screen. The safe side of the planet was still so far away. They were moving too slow. They were being cooked alive. He slammed his hand on the communication panel. Dae-hyun, we are not going to make it. Our ship is failing. There was a moment of static. Then Dae-hyun's voice came through, calm as stone. Acknowledged. On the view screen, Jin-suk saw it. The dark shape of the unyielding guard emerged from the volcanic caldera. It rose into the storm, its dark hull seeming to drink the violent light. It moved not like a ship avoiding danger, but like a predator entering its domain. What is he doing? Minsu asked, his voice a low rumble of confusion. The human ship accelerated with impossible speed. It did not head away from the sun. It flew directly towards the luminescence. For a horrible second, Jin-suk thought they were going to be rammed. But the unyielding guard slid underneath them, positioning its own massive hull between the luminescence and the raging sun. The view screen was filled with the sight of the human ship's scarred, dark back. The radiation levels, they're dropping, Sumin said, her voice full of wonder. He is shielding us. His hull is absorbing the energy. The violent shaking of the luminescence lessened. The alarm signaling shield failure went silent. The human ship was taking the full force of the solar storm for them. But the danger was not over. The wave of energy was also a wave of physical matter, a cloud of superheated plasma. Brace for impact, Minsu yelled. The plasma wave hit the unyielding guard. The human ship shuddered, but held its position. Its hull began to glow a fierce, cherry red. They were using their own ship as a heat shield. His ship? It can't take this forever, Jin-suk whispered, watching in awe. Gravity surge, Sumin screamed. The flare is affecting the planet's core. Massive tectonic shift. The mountain range, it's collapsing. On the scanner, they could see the volcanic caldera that housed the human base crumbling in on itself. Giant chunks of rock were being thrown into the sky by the planetary trauma. One massive piece, the size of a small mountain, was on a collision course with them. We are dead, Ji-hun said, his hands falling from the controls. We cannot maneuver. That rock will hit us in seconds. Jin-suk looked from the collapsing world to the human ship still shielding them. He had no more orders to give. They had survived the sun, only to be killed by their own planet. Then, something unbelievable happened. The unyielding guard moved again. It rotated slowly, still keeping its body between them and the sun. But now its side faced the incoming asteroid. There were no visible weapons. No glowing barrels or missile ports. A section of the dark hull simply opened. From inside, a brilliant, silent beam of pure white energy lanced out. It was not like the blue beam that vaporized the meteorites. This was thicker, more powerful. It struck the giant asteroid. The rock did not explode. It did not vaporize. It simply came apart. It disintegrated into a fine, harmless dust that scattered harmlessly against the unyielding guard's shields. The weapon had not blown it up. It had unraveled it at a molecular level. The bridge of the luminescence was utterly silent. The crew could only watch. The solar flare began to subside. The waves of energy lessened. The unyielding guard, its hull still glowing with immense heat, maintained its protective position until the last of the danger had passed. Finally, Daehyun's voice came over the comm again. His voice was the same as always. Calm, steady. The event has passed. The path to the lee side is clear. You may proceed. Jin-suk could not find any words. What could he say? Thank you felt pathetic. He simply said, acknowledged, and thank you. He nodded to Ji-hun. The pilot, his hands shaking, gently guided the wounded luminescence away from the guardian ship and towards the safety of the planet's dark side. As they moved away, Jin-suk looked back at the unyielding guard. It hung in space, a silent, black sentinel against the fading light of the storm. It was scarred, it was brutal, and it had just saved their lives without a second thought. They had not found a monster on the Deathworld. They had found the most powerful protector in the galaxy, and they had never even known it was there. The luminescence drifted in the quiet darkness on the far side of the planet. The contrast was absolute. Here, there was only the peace of the starry void and the gentle curve of the world below, hiding the fury of the other side. The ship was badly wounded. Its systems were damaged, its hull was scarred by radiation, and its crew was exhausted and shaken. But they were alive. For a long time, no one on the bridge spoke. They were all processing what they had seen. The power of the sun, the strength of the human ship, the sheer, unthinkable act of using a vessel as a shield. Captain Jin-suk finally broke the silence. His voice was hoarse. Damage report. Sumin was already compiling the data. Primary systems are stable, but just barely. The engines need major work before we can attempt a jump to faster-than-light travel. Life support is functional. The hull, it will hold for now. We were very, very lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it, Minsu said quietly. The large Kthar was staring at the image of the planet on the view screen. His usual aggressive posture was gone, replaced by a look of deep thought. He saved us. He risked his own ship, his own crew for us. Why? Before anyone could answer, a communication alert chimed. It was a direct, secure channel from the unyielding guard. Jin-suk took a deep breath and opened it. Commander Daehyun's face appeared on the screen. He looked exactly as he had before the crisis. There was no sign of stress or effort on his face. Captain Jin-suk, your ship's integrity. We are damaged, but functional, Jin-suk replied. Thanks to you. We owe you our lives. Daehyun gave a small, dismissive wave of his hand. It was a calculated action. Your ship would have been lost. Its loss would have prompted more questions, more concordance vessels to investigate. Secrecy is our best defense. Preserving you preserved our mission. It was a cold, logical answer, but Jin-suk sensed it was not the whole truth. The humans had moved to protect them before Jin-suk had even called for help. They had acted instinctively. Your base, Jin-suk began hesitantly. We saw the mountain collapse. The outer structures were lost, Daehyun said, his tone matter of fact. The core of the facility is buried deeper. We are already digging out. It is a minor inconvenience. This world provides us with many challenges. We are used to adapting. Minor inconvenience. He described the destruction of his home as a minor inconvenience. Jin-suk looked at the calm face of the human commander and finally understood. These people were not just strong. Their resilience was beyond anything the Concordance could imagine. Problem was not a disaster. It was just something to be solved. What happens now? Jin-suk asked. We have seen what you are. We know your secret. Dae-hyun was silent for a moment, his dark eyes studying Jin-suk. That is the question. You have a choice to make, Captain. You can return to the Concordance. You can tell them everything. You can describe the Deathworld and the terrifying warship and the humans who hide here. They will panic. They will send fleets. They will try to contact us to integrate us. They will create noise and light, and they will draw the attention of the very things we guard against. He leaned forward slightly. Or you can tell a different story. You can say you confirmed the Deathworld classification, that it is unstable and far too dangerous for any further study. You can say you encountered a severe solar event that damaged your ship and that you were lucky to escape. You can help us maintain the silence. You can let us continue our work. You want us to lie to the Concordance? Sumin asked, her voice soft with surprise. I want you to protect it. Dae-hyun corrected her. The truth is a weapon. Right now, your people are not strong enough to wield it. The truth would make them fearful. It would make them look outward with paranoia. It would change them and not for the better. Your innocence, your peace, that is your strength. It is what we fight to preserve. Jin-suk looked around his bridge. He saw the faces of his crew. He saw their fear but also a new understanding. They had seen the storm. They had seen the wall that held it back. The galaxy was not the safe garden they thought it was. It had teeth. And there were those who stood between the teeth and them. Your people, Jin-suk said slowly. You live in hardship and secrecy. You get no thanks. You get no recognition. You just stand guard. For generations. It is our purpose, Dae-hyun said simply. This world forged us for this task. We do not need thanks. We only need to know that the garden is still growing, safe behind its wall. Jin-suk made his decision. He was a captain of the Concordance, sworn to truth and knowledge. But he was also a protector of his crew and his civilization. Sometimes the greatest truth was too dangerous to know. We will file the report you suggested, Jin-suk said, his voice firm. TK-741 is a Class 3 Deathworld. It is unstable and poses a continued threat to navigation. It is to be avoided. Our data was corrupted by the solar event. We have nothing more to add. On the screen, Dae-hyun gave a single, slow nod. It was the first sign of respect he had shown. A wise choice, Captain. You are protecting your people in your own way. A data packet arrived on Jin-suk's console. These are repair protocols for your engine manifold, Dae-hyun said, and safe coordinates for a jump point outside the system's gravitational well. You should be able to leave in 6 hours. Thank you, Jin-suk said again, and this time he meant it differently. Dae-hyun's image began to fade. Good luck, Captain Jin-suk of the GC Luminescence. Tend your garden well. The screen went dark. 6 hours later, the Luminescence, its engines patched together with the help of the human instructions, powered up for its jump. The crew was at their stations, quiet and thoughtful. Courses laid in for the nearest Concordance outpost, Ji-hun reported. Jin-suk stood one last time, looking at the planet on the view screen. It was a beautiful, swirling marble of green and blue. He no longer saw just a death world. He saw a forge. He saw a shield. He saw a home. Take us home, he said. The ship leaped forward into the blur of faster-than-light travel. The planet TK-741, known as Earth, vanished behind them. In the official records, it would be marked as a place of death and danger, to be forgotten. But the crew of the Luminescence would never forget. They had looked into the heart of a storm and had seen not a monster, but a guardian. They had learned that the galaxy was not a gentle place. but that they were not alone in it. They had a silent, unyielding guard, watching from the dark. And for now, that was a truth that needed no official record. It was enough to simply know.